Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest one-to-one. My name is Martin Redmayne, and I'm joined by the esteemed, sartorial, elegant John Leonida. John, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Good afternoon, Martin. I'm very well indeed.
Good. Now, listen, the interesting topic of conversation. Obviously, we all have heard your announcement of your, let's say, retirement from the law. How's that feeling?
Somewhat odd. After more than 20 years in practice, last week was my first full week of not being a lawyer, but I still, at 5-minute intervals, was checking my iPhone for emails from a non-existent email account. Also, the muscle memory had been built in over so many years that I'm missing my 60 or 70 emails a day. But time will come where I won't miss those 60 or 70 emails a day. Although, oddly enough, I'm still getting the odd phone call from former clients, and you'll say, well, I don't practice anymore, which is, and I push them back to my old firm.
Good. So listen, after let's say a change in direction, what's the plan, John? Just as a little understanding of the market.
The plan is several-fold. The thing that primarily drove me to retire from the law is to focus on my academic work, which is, as you know, Martin, I'm working on a PhD at the University of Greenwich on the social and cultural history of super yachts from 1918 to 2018. That's my primary reason for retiring. But also, I want to indulge in my creative writing, which I enjoy, and I'm working on a novel as well. And I anticipate that I'll be doing a little bit of super yacht industry consultancy work, as and when occasion arises. I have joined the family consultancy business, which has been around for about 11 years, and I'll be working through that company called LP Squared to do the odd piece of consultancy work, and we've already had a couple of contracts signed to do advisory work on the super yacht industry.
Good. Excellent stuff. So listen, you've seen a lot, you've heard a lot, you've been exposed to a lot in this market. So there should be some interesting subjects that we can and can't talk about, obviously. But I'm going to say to you, the opening question I have really is, out of all the experience you've had in yachting, what frustrates you the most about our industry?
The thing that has always frustrated me is the tendency to use economic muscle to bully people. Where I've often seen people with impossible positions, or people who are seeking to extract some personal financial benefit, use that to drive decisions, as opposed to what is legally or ethically correct. And I've seen far too much of that over the years. It has, I hasten to add, diminished over the last 10 years, but it is still there in the background. It's sadly, part of the culture of the super yacht industry, where so much of what we do is driven by very large sums of money. And it's perfectly understandable that when presented with the opportunity of that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, some people will trample over anyone and anything to get to that pot of gold.
Yeah. You say it's improving, John, or changing in the right direction. there's still a long way to go, though, I think, in many cases. One of the things I always like to sort of talk about is the clients themselves. And I think what we have certainly seen over the years is the clients changing their approach to yachting in terms of who they employ and how they use the advisory network. If you could give, let's say, the client landscape some advice today for the next generation or the next phase of our industry, what would it be?
I mean, I had occasion to think of this in the last week. I was talking to someone within the yacht brokerage space, and they asked me the very same question. And what I think the ideal client is a client that does not and is not rushed into taking decisions before or final decisions before they have all the information available to them. We have often seen over the years, and I've written about this before, where you have clients who ring you up 3 weeks before they anticipate closing a deal, and they say to you, well, this is a standard contract, isn't it? Just give it a once over and we'll sort out the detail later. And invariably, it all ends horribly. The good client is the client who is thinking about a yacht and comes to you possibly 12 months before they're actually ready to sign the contract. Because let us face it, a yacht can cost anywhere between 20 million, so certainly 20 million and 200 million plus. Take a decision in 3 weeks on a decision on a yacht of that magnitude is crazy. Occasionally they are, and they have been speaking to their yacht brokers, their designers for many, many weeks, but they leave the lawyers, they leave sometimes the project managers, sometimes the designers out of the picture, almost until the very last moment, when it's almost too late to change direction, when sometimes that direction is absolutely necessary to be changed.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very interesting sort of area of the market where there's a lot of pressure on all parties to get to a contract or get to a closed deal. And I wonder if we all breathed a little more slowly, we'd have a much more oxygenated industry with a healthier outcome. Because at the end of the day, you're seeing deals that get done. And then I've called this the end of the lawsuit this session, but lawsuits arrive because of this bizarre need to get things done last minute.
Well, absolutely. And I say the most successful yacht builds I've been involved in have always been those with a very long gestation period, where and I can think of many over the years where the owner was front and center, if you will, of the transaction process, that he was interested in the design, interested in where the yacht was going to be built, and was part of the process. And in those particular deals where the owner wanted to understand what he was getting himself into and what it would mean for him to own a particular yacht, what it would mean in the way he would live his life, or her life for that matter. Those are the deals that have always been very smooth. The deals which haven't been smooth and very often have ended up in litigation are those where the owner has either by himself or by the team surrounding him propelled that owner to sign that contract in very, very short order. And as the old adage is very true. You make a decision in haste and repent at your leisure.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, anything else that's on your mind that you think either is still a frustration or a thing we have to address as a marketplace to improve the landscape?
Well, I think to say frustration, let me, if I may, talk briefly why I chose to follow the academic path and the particular research subject that I was looking at. And I think this will assist in answering your question, Martin. In 2008, when we had that first great financial crash, what happened then is we saw a lot of us running around looking for that great new big pot of money. If you remember, there were any number of rendezvous in Hainan, amongst other places, and this rush to China and Singapore because we thought, they may rescue the European superyacht industry. We attended any number of conferences where our friends from WealthX would be speakers, and they put up these marvelous charts saying just how many billionaires there were, the growth of the billionaires, and if only we were able to. Well, they didn't say it, but people in the superyacht industry took what WealthX were saying and said, well, look at what WealthX are saying in terms of the growth of billionaires. If only billionaires knew how fabulous yachts were, they would buy into it. And after all those efforts, the result was nothing changed. There wasn't this regrowth of the industry. It continued to contract. It continued to consolidate. And the number of billionaires engaging with the superyacht industry hasn't increased appreciably. And therefore, what I wondered is there something cultural that prevents people or dissuades people from engaging with the superyacht industry when otherwise, in previous decades, they would have engaged with the superyacht industry. So the purpose of my thesis is to try and find those cultural drivers which cause people to engage with our industry. But equally, the question that, Martin, you've posed many times and a number of people have posed is, we talk about frustration. What are those things which dissuade people from engaging with the industry? What behaviors do we put up with? Or do we encourage, or do we don't dismiss, which make people who would, in other circumstances, be perfect candidates to own a yacht, but don't want to get involved with an industry that they perceive as being potentially seedy, associated with money laundering. I watched on Netflix the other evening the winner of the best French feature film at the Cannes Film Festival in 2019. The English translation of the film title is called An Easy Girl, and it features a summer on the Côte d'Azur, and the main protagonist is potentially a girl of easy virtue, and she engages with a yacht owner, and there are lots of shots of life on board a super yacht. Things that you and I would recognize, Martin, but it portrays a particular view of super yachting, which, yes, does exist, but is not the predominant view. But it exists in such a way that people watching that film say, "Oh, yachts are a bit seedy."
Yeah. I think our image has been tarnished over the years. I think a prime example today. I actually watched my first 10-minute window of Below Deck the other day, which has become quite a sort of popular cult type Netflix series for the unknown and uninformed observer, and it's like it's offensive. The same applies to that film they made called Greed, which was almost a cameo of Philip Green's life, and it was, well, supposedly so, allegedly so, and it was like we have an image problem in so many ways that maybe we have a lot more work to do, John. But I think in terms of the customer, I had a very interesting chat with Marnix and Bart last week, and also with the Dickie Bannenberg and Simon Rao, about this new era of client, or this new culture of client, where it's not about, let's say, obsessive, ostentatious culture of everything has to be the most glitzy, glamorous, perfect, most expensive, etc. It goes back to basics again, and actually having something that's purely just about enjoyment of your time afloat. And I feel maybe we're heading into a new era where we have to stop saying we can build the most expensive toys on the world and build something completely different that actually has. Well, sorry, go on.
Martin, I would absolutely agree with that, because that in a sense taps into, if you will, some of the reasoning why people from the mid 19th century up until the 1930s, what drove those people to engage with yachting? When yachting was far more popular than it is now, there were far more people involved in yachting from the mid 19th century, and indeed up until the start of the First World War. People loved the idea of being engaged with the sea, and the sea was all important. And they built yachts, they loved regattas, they loved the lifestyle of being on the water, and they saw it as an extension of their life ashore. And there was no cultural disconnect between having your country estate and having your yacht. But more importantly, those who were not sailors, those who could not afford to be involved in yachting, admired yachting. And in some of my early research, I've been reading newspapers from, say, the 1890s up until the outbreak of the First World War. And in all of those newspapers, during Cowes Week, the English court, the royal court, would decamp to the Isle of Wight. And that was reported not only in the Times, as you would expect it, but it was syndicated to newspapers throughout the land. And everyone throughout the land knew, not only that the royal family were in Cowes, but which dignitaries, which royal families from throughout Europe, and which yachts were at Cowes that year. Now, in an idle moment before the lockdown, I stumbled upon one of those little stalls in Spitalfields markets that sells vintage postcards. And I found a postcard from 1902, I believe. And it was a hand-tinted postcard of the Royal Yacht Victoria and Albert. And the postcard was sent from the Isle of Wight. And the writer of the postcard writes in excited tones, not only of all the royals and princes and lords that they had seen, but the great joy that they had when they took a cruise around the royal yacht at night with all her lights ablaze. And you got a real sense that this was something that ordinary people engaged with, not just because they were the royal family. And we know in the early part of the 20th century, the relationship with the royal family was much stronger than it is today. But there was, in a sense, a pride in that particular seafaring throne
Yeah.
That particular writer of that particular postcard took great joy in. And if you read newspapers of the period, that was not an unusual aspiration and feeling, if you will, that people had. And the other side of the coin of getting qualified people to buy yachts is winning over the general population. Because if someone wants to buy a yacht, even though you're a billionaire, you still are mindful of what do other people think. And in the way that people, when they see stately homes, they admire them. When they see Ferraris, they admire them. And they don't denigrate the purchase of a Ferrari or a stately home. We need, in a sense, to, from a cultural perspective, place the super yacht not as the epitome of or the reward of bad people, but as a piece of gorgeous maritime architecture that celebrates the water, celebrates the sea, but equally recognizes that it is part of general society. We need to bring an end to the idea. We keep hearing stories of poor behaviour on board yachts, of sexual harassment suits, of injuries, of drug taking, of unsavoury parties on board yachts. That has to change. That doesn't happen on the vast majority of yachts, but it happens on enough yachts for the popular press and the media to grab hold of that. In a sense, we have to police that, such that it's unacceptable to behave badly at sea.
Yeah, I think that we are faced with another type of problem, though, John, which is the world of social media, and that hasn't helped our cause in many cases, because the day of the newspaper column about the royal family on their yacht versus how the viral nature of the various social channels can give people a voice to share their, let's say, candid opinion, can really cause what I call a viral negative wave in a way. So it's like one of the things we have to look at is how do we as an industry really focus in on, you say policing, but almost making people responsible as part of the culture of the industry, to think before they broadcast, to think before they share, to think before they allow themselves to be photographed or whatever, because it happens at all the different layers, from deckhands up to owners.
Martin, it is an education process.
Yeah.
For far too long, there has been a culture that is very anti-regulatory, that any regulation it gets in the way of fun. I mean, I over the years, Martin, when I have made observations about some of the activities that go on within the super yacht industry, people will say, well, why are you stirring the pot?
Yeah.
Why are you making it difficult for all of us? It's all about fun. I well recall on one occasion talking to a senior member of a flag state who said, well, what we want is to make it easier for the owner. And by easier, it meant deregulation as opposed to more regulation. The idea being that in some way, because you are wealthy and you own a yacht, you should be free of all the obligations that any other ship owner would have. Now, the point of that, Martin, is that we will only get to that better place if captains, if crew, if yacht managers look at a yacht as a place of work.
Yeah.
And ask the question, if you're working in an office in Paris or in New York or in London, would your behavior in your office be acceptable, or rather, sorry, would your behavior on the yacht be acceptable in the office? Because it is a place of work.
Yeah.
I mean, if I went into my old office and drank 2 bottles of champagne and ran around the office and behaved as sometimes some crew do, some owners do, would that be acceptable? No. I would be fired immediately. Sorry?
You mean you've never done that?
Oddly enough, no, Martin, that hasn't happened. But the yacht is a place of work.
Yeah.
And you may say, oh, I'm being a killjoy. But if we talk about professionalism, we have to have professional captains, professional crew who treat their colleagues with due deference and due respect.
Yeah.
That the captains are not authoritarian, and that they are the kings of their domain. They are the chief executive, if you will, of their yacht. And as the chief executive, they have duties, they have responsibilities of leadership, and they must be respected. Simply throwing their weight around because they can, because it's my yacht, is not the way that the future of yachting should be.
Yeah.
They are captains of a floating business, and whether it's private or commercial, it doesn't matter. It is a place of work, and everyone who goes to that place of work needs to have a clear idea of what their responsibilities are, what their duties are, and that they are to be treated with respect, which was the whole point of the Maritime Labour Convention.
Yeah.
And people were often were complaining about the imposition of MLC, but MLC did one thing, was to bring in proper contractual relationships and complaints procedures. The next stage of MLC is to change the culture on board the yachts, and to make them more professional. Most yachts, as I said, most yachts are very professional, but there should be no space for those owners, for those crew members that don't treat the yachts with respect.
Mm. No, it's a very interesting topic, and it's one that we can talk for hours on, in terms of one of the issues we do have in this particular subject matter is the recruitment process and the actual presentation of the lifestyle is attracting the wrong people. I had a conversation earlier on today with someone about this very topic of how we recruit professionals, and their expectation is always mismanaged or poles apart from reality. So it's a one of those things where we have to get the career path in that professional process much more clarified or qualified, rather than just hiring anyone and everyone who fits or looks the part.
No, and you're absolutely right. And this is where, and there's been a lot of social media chatter about this in the last few months. Yeah. And the word is diversity. The super yacht industry is one of the least diverse industries that I know. Yeah. You walk around any marina and you look at the crew, and you could freely interchange the crew from one yacht to another yacht because they all look the same. They come from similar backgrounds. Yeah. There are Australian crew, there are South African crew, There are lots of Brits, but there are very few people of colour. There are very few people from other nations. It's almost become a closed shop, such that the super yacht industry looks like one of those outdated country clubs where you went onto the golf course, and if your only experience of a particular nation was that golf course, you would think the entire nation was white, blue-eyed, and blonde, and come from the same kind of background.
Yes.
And that's not the reality. And you look at potential owners,
Yes.
and a lot of owners don't look like their crew anymore. Potential owners don't look like their crew. I mean, if I am someone of wealth, and I look at the super yacht industry from the outside, it looks like a privileged country club.
Yeah.
And we need that needs to change. And I know conversations are being had at the moment on steps to improve diversity, and that has to happen more than just at the level of just talking about it. Positive action needs to be taken to make super yachting more diverse and more reflective of the world.
Yeah, 100%, John. So that's a big, let's say, task for the marketplace to really focus in on. Let's go back to your legal background, let's call it, John. Your experience is pretty myriad, and let's say, I'd call it a bit of a rock star in the legal world. From the legal perspective of yachting, what do you think we should be looking to change about that side of the marketplace? 'Cause again, it's become a very UK-centric legal sector. Is there anything else you think we need to look at from that side of the market in terms of the way law is interpreted or developed, or how contracts are put together in this industry? Because there's always these questions of why the English law and why not the German. I know there's reasons why at the moment, but
I mean, historically, maritime law has been at its most developed in England.
Yeah.
And whether it's commercial tonnage or yacht tonnage, the UK had the most developed admiralty courts.
Yeah.
And that is why, by accident of history, the UK has had that particular dominance, and why the English lawyers in the profession have held sway.
Yes.
And that's the historical reason of it. But am I going to say that it's perfect? Not by any stretch of of anything. Does it need to change? Does it need to develop? Absolutely. One looks at, for example, during the COVID period, the MEBA charter form was found wanting. It didn't contemplate a situation where people who were chartering yachts couldn't get to their chartered yachts, because of a COVID outbreak. It left the power entirely within the hands of the owner. Now, in most cases, owners were reasonable, and from what I understand from a number of charter brokers, people behaved in a sensible way. But that MEBA charter contract was found wanting. The number of times the MEBA sale and purchase contract has been found wanting in a particular set of circumstances, that needs to be looked at and revised. I mean, we've always done things in a particular way, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't take a step back and revisit the way that we have done things. I mean, you often see, and I've seen quite a lot of arbitration over the last 20 years, that there is an inner circle of lawyers, of arbitrators, of experts who owners begin to mistrust how independent everyone is, because everyone seems to know everyone.
Yes.
In a sense, there needs to be more transparency in the way that we do our work as lawyers, the way that we get our instructions, the way that we declare, if we, for example, it's not uncommon for lawyers to have very good working relationships with brokers, project managers, designers, etc. And you will often get referrals from all those individuals. I think it's hugely important that when you get those referrals, that you say to whoever's come to you, yes, I know that person, and we have worked together on X number of deals, and leave it to the owner, to your potential client, to say whether they're comfortable with that or not. Sometimes they're not comfortable with that. Sometimes they are, and they thank you for making that disclosure. We need to be more open. We need to explain more how the contracts work. We need to explain more how litigation works, and we need to explain more the consequences of things going wrong. And we need to talk to our clients more. And I think that's often when clients have made complaints about not knowing how much something might cost, it's often because there's lack of communication. But I don't think the sort of the English legal community, I think, will continue to maintain their dominance. But I think the developments that will come going forward, I think we've got to be looking at smart contracts, digitized contracts. We've got to be looking at that. There are other ways I've had a number of clients over the years who want to do deals without yacht brokers, and they said, "Do I need a yacht broker? And must I use this contract?" And the answer often is, well, you don't actually have to use the MIBRA MOA. It's convenient because everyone knows the document. But I've used for yacht sale and purchases what we use in the commercial shipping world, which is the Norwegian sail form, which is designed for the buying and selling of commercial tonnage. And personally, I think it's a much better document than the MIBRA form, and it's been around for the length of a Bible.
Are you sure?
I think Noah's Ark was bought and sold. After he landed on Mount Ararat, he wanted to sell the Ark, and I think he did use the Norwegian sail form.
And your great grandfather helped with the contract.
Probably.
John, so listen, what's your forecast for the future? Not for your consultancy or PhD, because obviously that's going to be very interesting to watch unfold. But you take our industry today, you take what's been happening in the last, certainly the last 6 months, the last 6 years. We've had some very interesting roller coasters and turbulent times, and also some positive times. Where do you think we're heading as a marketplace?
I have nothing but hope. For the market. We historically we have always gone through these ebbs and flows, Martin. I was reading a book published in 1949 by the editor of Yachting Monthly, a chap called Maurice Griffiths, who was at the helm of that magazine for many, many years, and a celebrated small boat designer in his own right. I think he had more than 800 yachts of his design built. And he wrote in the 1940s of that period immediately after the Second World War that owners are now going to smaller yachts, and the days of the great white yachts have gone the same way as the stately homes. Now, he wrote that in I think 1948, 49, around that period. The industry has, for more than 200 years, it has expanded, it has contracted. But the thing that has remained constant is that there has always been a coterie of people who have had a love for the sea and will do whatever it takes to get on the water. And whether that is in a 150-meter yacht or a 40-meter yacht or a 24-meter yacht, they will find a way of getting on the water. And I have nothing but hope, and I have the expectation that the industry will find a solution to the problems that are preventing its expansion, and we will come out of it a much stronger industry, as we have done in so many different eras, Martin.
Yeah. No, it's been a cycle that we've seen over the years. Last little commentary, John. It's one of the topics that's dear to my heart and is fairly hot at the moment. And the word sustainability, the word green, what does that mean to you from a yachting perspective?
I think sustainability, and I think in an interview that Rory Jackson did with me and Helen Brocklebank, which has just been republished on the app, I think in the last couple of days, sustainability is more than just green. The being careful with our oceans and careful with the planet almost goes without saying, and that's hugely important. But to be sustainable means to be sustainable in terms of our broader social responsibilities as an industry. And Helen Brocklebank said it very, very well, that in the future, the ultimate luxury is to be able to afford, as an owner, to do the right thing socially when you own an asset. I'm just paraphrasing Helen there.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely right. That yes, the water revolution is an important step forward. The water revolution must look beyond just clean oceans. If it's to be a revolution on the water, it must be in all aspects that a yacht engages with the sea, and that includes, as we've discussed already, issues of diversity and issues of ethics, and of course issues of the clean seas.
Yeah. No, I think that it's a very interesting dimension, that, John, because people still align green and sustainability probably too closely together. Sustainability has a whole different meaning within the UN. As you say, it's about poverty, diversity, and all these other social issues. And I think sometimes we have to clarify what it really means to be sustainable. It even includes supply chain. where
No,
things are coming from.
I mean, it also includes, if you will, not turning a blind eye to where the money is coming from.
Yeah.
Now, one of the stories that we all often hear, Martin, is that how much money a super yacht will bring to a local economy where it's being built. What sometimes people forget is, where has that money come from? And has that money diminished the economy that it's come from?
Yes.
If it's come from a third world country and no questions have been asked as to the origin of that money, and there have been some very famous examples in recent years where monies have been defrauded from other nations.
Yeah.
And you think, well, is that, yes, it may have brought, let us say, 10,000 jobs to a small part of the Netherlands, but has that diminished potentially 100,000 lives in another part of the world? And that is also part of sustainability. I mean, I have no problem with people of wealth building super yachts. I've built my career on it. I love boats.
Yeah.
What I do have a problem with is people turning a blind eye to the origin of funds, which was the very basis of the money laundering legislation, which a lot of people complain about. But the heart of money laundering legislation was there to prevent clean businesses laundering ill-gotten gains. And sometimes those ill-gotten gains, the consequence of those ill-gotten gains, are people not having a decent life in other parts of the world.
Yeah. No, it is a very interesting, broad topic called sustainability. I think it needs to be clarified as to what it really means at all levels. It's just a sort of anecdotal comment from my side. I'm just very keen to hear what industry leaders think about.
And I think, Martin, you're absolutely right. Starting from the United Nations definition of what sustainability is an important step. But let's not denigrate the good work done by the ecological campaigns, because without those ecological campaigns, we wouldn't be talking about plastic at sea.
Yeah.
And people talk about sort of greenwashing or blue washing. Yes, we for a moment in time, we importantly focus on those areas. I think now it's the time to keep up the effort on that side, but also focus on a broader definition of sustainability.
Yeah, it's a broad description called cleaning up our act in so many ways.
Absolutely. There is no doubt that's absolutely necessary, Martin.
Okay, John, we're going to finish in about 1 or 2 minutes, but I'm going to ask you a very, very direct question. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in this industry?
Oh, the funniest. Oh, God, Martin, I wish you'd asked me this.
You're such a raconteur with always great stories we share over glasses of wine and stuff. I just try to think, you've retired from law, so there must be one episode you think, gee.
Oh, the nuttiest episode, I have to say. I was working on a particular transaction where the counterparty was in New Zealand. And I flew from London to Auckland, landed about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I put the black suit on, went to the meeting, banged the table, got what we needed, and I was out within half an hour. That was the nuttiest thing I think I ever did. I flew from one side of the world to another side of the world for a meeting that lasted less than half an hour. Insane. There have been other things which.
How long did you stay in Auckland for then?
I had to stay in Auckland for 3 days.
Okay, fine. So you made the most of it, surely.
Well, because my flight back was on the Monday, and I remember sitting in Auckland Harbour having a beer at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on that Monday. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the same Monday, I was in Los Angeles having the same pint of beer in a bar in Los Angeles. And that still freaks me out, that whole time zone change. But one of many bizarre instances, driving through the congested traffic of Istanbul in a client's car, he had blues and twos in his bomb-proof car, and driving through Istanbul to get to the airport because I was running late, and that was immense fun. But yes, that perhaps is for the book, Martin.
Yeah, exactly. So, John, you're not going anywhere. You're still a big part of this industry, and I think the future's looking healthy for you. I'm taking it. What will we have to call you, Dr. John Leonida?
At some point.
Excellent.
But not yet.
Excellent. Well, for now, John, thanks a million for your time, and I really enjoyed the chat.
Martin, thank you very much indeed for having me.
All right. See you soon.
See you soon, Martin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.